Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Lauryn Axelrod is an ordained interfaith, interspiritual minister, chaplain, and spiritual director dedicated to fostering personal and collective growth through spiritual wisdom. A graduate of One Spirit Interfaith Interspiritual Seminary, Lauryn is the founding spiritual director of the Three Mountains Interspiritual Community. She is also the author of the book 10 Words, an interspiritual guide to becoming better people in a better world, and writes the Substack newsletter, Radical Spirituality, Getting to the Root of What Matters. Lauryn leads workshops, retreats, and teachings, blending ancient wisdom with modern science to inspire transformative change in individuals and communities. The key word I got here, Lauryn, is interspiritual. That is amazing. Thank you so much for being on my show today.
Oh, thank you so much, Gina. It's really a pleasure.
Yes, and I swear I can already tell you're a beautiful soul,
Mm,
spreading love and light to this world. And I know your book is going to make a lot of impact in this world. So thank you so much for publishing the book.
thank you. Thank you. And light seeks light.
That's
Right.
right. That's right. I was just on an airplane not that long ago, just hours ago. And I saw people finally being kinder to each other. Before it was people were cranky. I mean, okay, so I'm telling you a story. So in Atlanta, Georgia, when I was traveling over there, people were so mad because the airline was delayed and they were just like, ugh. But that was rippling constantly. But my experience this time, people were being more kind and loving. I'm like, wow, what a big difference. I want to be in that environment. And so,
Yes.
yes, so I wanted to ask you, what actually inspired you to go ahead and distill the wisdom of the world's diverse spiritual and faith traditions into a guide based on 10 simple words?
Well, that's such a great question because it was really my own journey that propelled it. I've spent my life as a spiritual seeker. I grew up in a ecumenical but religious environment and just was always curious, In my teens, went off into the Eastern traditions that lasted for pretty much most of my life, but also have, very deep roots in the Abrahamic traditions. And, I reached a point where in my own journey, I understood that underneath it all, they're all saying the same things, right? But we've created this artificial division, this artificial, you know, um, polarization, really, especially now. It's gotten very everybody's in their camp. And really, what I was looking for personally was a map for myself. Because what happens when you're in a singular faith or wisdom tradition, you have a map. They give it to you. Here's the map, right? But once you start, picking and choosing and going, well, I like this and I don't, and you kind of cherry pick, what happens is you actually wind up creating a spiritual smoothie where it just all gets blended together, but there's no structure to it. There's no guide, there's no map. So it was my own frustration of like, I need a map, I need a guide. And then looking around and hearing from, the people that I support as a spiritual director and counselor and teacher, hearing the same thing from them. Like they just were getting lost. They've got all these techniques and all this, like, I've got my meditation and my Tai Chi and my drum circle and this and that, but not really getting anywhere because there was no structure. And so the 10 words really form a framework or a structure or a map that keep you from getting lost in the wilds of modern spirituality.
Yeah. I was just thinking about when I was going to church as a little girl. It was actually a Spanish speaking church. I don't even speak Spanish. This is my dad's side. He passed away when I was a baby, but I was very close to the family. His sister, my aunt, pretty much raised me. And I remember being scolded at constantly, like, "Doo, doo, doo, doo." I'm like, wait, that's too much for me. And really, I stopped going to church because of that reason. I felt like I was being reprimanded constantly. And so in my journey, I was mentioning to you that I was a heavy drinker and no longer anymore, and 7 years sober. And
Congratulations.
thank you so much. And my path was to go to a church. So I did. I'm
Mhm.
like, let me explore church. I didn't grow
Hmm.
up religious, spiritual, religious. I was too young to really understand anything. But I felt that at church, I felt the love there. I'm like, okay, this is where I need to be at this moment.
Hmm.
And I felt I was in a lot of community. Community was big for me. I was doing a lot of like Bible study, and then I was also serving the homeless, and that's where eventually I met my husband um,
Hmm.
there. But my point is that I felt that there was more because I felt there's still rules, and I'm like, this is not just it. Why am I being told what to do all the time?
Right,
So I
right.
wanted that map. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the difference. The 10 words are not thou shalts or thou shalt nots.
Yes.
There's no doctrine, there's no dogma. You can use these 10 words whether you subscribe to a religion or not. They're fundamental principles really that apply across the board. Regardless, religion, no religion, spirituality, no spirituality. You'll find them in science,
Yeah.
which is its own religion, but never mind, right? So, but what you're saying is so true. Like so many people are really traumatized by their experience in religion, right? Because it's all the thou shalts, and that you have to believe this and you have to do that. Whereas these words are more questions. They're really inquiry based. They're like, what does this word mean for you? How does it show up in your life? And how can you cultivate it? And how can you bring it forth into the world? You know? And you bring up another really wonderful point about sort of the importance of community. These words are words that you can practice yourself, right? Or do them with friends. Build a community around it, because really the more people who are practicing these words, who are bringing, these principles into the world and into their lives, the better we're all going to be.
Right. Yes. And actually, can you share some of those or those 10 core principles and how they can
Absolutely.
actually start helping individuals navigate everyday challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. There's simple words and we know these words. There's nothing fancy here. I didn't make the words up. I just distilled them, right? They all begin with A, B, and C. They're that foundational. So the first word is attention, because you're not going anywhere if you're not paying attention, right? Period. End of story, right? Attention is the first word, and that's going to carry you all the way through. The second word is acceptance, right? Is what it is. We got to start seeing things without our veils, without our illusions, without our stories, right? Our assumptions. Then there's authenticity, third word. Truth, honesty, not just to others, but to ourselves, being who we are. Fourth word is benevolence, basic kindness. Like you said, you get in the airport, wow, people are being kind. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't it just great when people are just kind? Balance. So balance is a word that, shows up everywhere, whether it's the balance of how we spend our time, our self-care or not self-care, balance in relationship to others, to our environment. The sixth word is contemplation, taking that time to just be quiet, be still, right? Bringing your attention off yourself out to the bigger world, right? To the something else. Then the seventh word is creativity. We are inherently creative. The universe is creative, constantly creating. Everything's just constantly being created all the time, and us too. We are creating the world with every breath we take. The eighth word is collaboration. Everything is interconnected. We should know this by now, right?
Mhm.
Everything is interconnected. And so we have to work in collaboration, not in competition, not in conquest, not in control. The ninth word is celebration, right? It's pretty freaking awesome to be alive, right? To be alive, to be in this world. Sure, there's hard things, but we have to celebrate joy, gratitude. And then the 10th word is care. That's the only way we get through any of this, is by caring for one another, caring for our environment, caring for the bigger picture, right? And it's really interesting because they're not linear, even though they look linear on the page. They're not linear because the first word is attention, the last word is care. To care for something is a higher octave of attention. It's giving a specific kind of attention to something. So they form a holistic path and they're all related to each other. Once you start working with the words, you realize that you can't have one without the other, that they all actually form a complete path. And that's what was so mind-blowing about them for me when I just discovered them, really, you know, was wow, this is a complete path.
And they're all action words.
Hmm. They're verbs.
Yeah.
They're who we can become, right? That's why the subtitle of the book is an interspiritual guide to becoming better people in a better world, right? It's who we can become personally. And as we become that, the world will change.
Mm.
Right?
It's so true. Yes. When things change, when you start to change, and then things around you start to change. No
Mhm,
doubt. Oh my
mhm,
goodness. Yeah.
mhm.
Now, did these words come to you in like even sometimes dreams, or were you just they just resonated with you?
So they really kind of came as a kind of 10-minute download.
Oh
It
wow.
was pretty fascinating. I mean, in context, years of study and practice,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So they didn't just come out of a vacuum, right? But this is my vocabulary. This is the world that I live in. But when I sat down to say, okay, I'm just going to start writing the principles, and I'm just going to start with A. And within 10 minutes, I got to care and went, okay, I'm done. I mean, yeah, there's some D words, right? But they aren't actually they're adjuncts, right? They're the things that help you stay on the path. They're not the path itself, right? But it just kind of came in this download, and I went, oh, wait a minute, you know, there's something here, and I got all excited about it, and I shared it with some colleagues and some friends, and they got all excited about it, and so we spent a year going through each one of these words, so one word a month. And then at the end of the year, taking 2 months to kind of in this process, the D words, right? Of discerning and deciding, okay, how did this change us? And how are we putting these into practice? And how are they transforming us and therefore the world? And at the end of that year, we went, oh my gosh, they work. They work really well. They work almost effortlessly. That's what's so interesting about them. Is that once you have the word in your head, you could just put it on a sticky note on your computer and you just let that percolate. And you'll see they're going to show up everywhere all the time. You're not going to get through a day where most of these words aren't going to show up.
It's like we're meant for these words. Our souls are meant for these words.
Yeah,
It's like
because
that's why it's so effortless.
yeah, because there's nothing, I mean, we've been taught this for thousands and thousands of years. I didn't make this up. You know, this is what our great wisdom and faith traditions have been saying. And now we can sort of back it up with science and psychology, just like we're learning, that things that, the mystics said about, the creation of the cosmos, the quantum physicists are going, well, yeah, you know. So we know this. We know these things. That's why they're not hard. They're who we are at our best.
Yes. Now you mentioned sticky notes, but are there any other practical ways people can go ahead and integrate these teachings into their daily lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book, for each chapter, each word has its own chapter. And there's a little bit of, description about what the word means and where it comes from and why it's a principle. And then there's some suggestions for how it might show up in your life. Again, this is not comprehensive. I'd have to write a book on each word, you know. Um, and also, I don't know your life. It's going to show up in your life differently than it shows up in my life. but it is going to show up. And then there's some suggested practices, simple practices. You don't have to believe anything. They don't come from a particular tradition, although you could say, okay, well, what would be a practice for attention, for example? Well, it's meditation, right? That's a practice for, that comes out of a specific tradition, but also not. You don't have to do Buddhist or Taoist meditation, right? You can just pay attention. And then there's some reflection questions. So for journaling or for, if you're working with other people, ask each other, learn from each other. So, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. But at the very minimum, just having that word kind of pinging in your head for a week, for a month, for a day, sometimes it's like, okay, what's the word today? you know? Or a lot of people, I recently did a book event where, I said, okay, so is there a word that's resonating for everybody right now? And 15 hands shot up and said, acceptance. This was right after the election. And I was like, all right, here we go, right? Here
Right.
we go. And you can accept on all kinds of levels in all kinds of ways. And what does it mean to accept? So it's an ongoing practice, and that's the other beautiful thing. This isn't a one and done. And I'm not promising that you're going to get to nirvana or enlightenment or, heaven. I'm just saying that if you put these words into practice, you will find yourself with more peace, more joy, more of a sense of purpose, more connection, more fulfilled, transformed. And when we have that, the world itself will transform. If you can imagine, everybody's walking around going, I'm at peace, right? I'm good with it all. I can collaborate. I'm using my creativity in really helpful, beneficial ways. We're taking care of each other. Can you imagine that kind of world?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I have to share a story also. I'm a big story person. My mother, well, I grew up in Fremont, California, and she still lives there to this day. What's so beautiful is that they have a neighborhood community, I guess a website or a collaboration or something, where my mom's like, I wasn't feeling well, and my doctor said I need to be having like oranges and eating a lot of those, but she wanted them more natural, not from the store. So she
Mhm.
just went on to the forum and just asked, hey, neighbors or whatever in the community, I was just wondering if any of you have any oranges from your trees that I can, if you don't mind me having because of this reason, this reason, this reason.
Mhm.
And people were just messaging back, oh, please come over. I have a ton, please
Right.
come over, please come over. And it was just so beautiful that the community was just coming together because my mom was requesting for some oranges because of what her doctor was asking her to do. And I thought it was great. I'm like, why doesn't we all have this? I mean, I'm sure
Right.
they're around, but what?
Well,
That's so awesome.
they are, but we have to cultivate it, right? I was
Right.
actually reading a really interesting article the other day that said that, we've lost what they call the neighbor,
Mm,
right? The neighbor relationship, because spirituality is all about relationship.
right.
Period, right? It's a relationship you have with yourself, with whatever you call the sacred, with other people in the world around you. It's all a relationship. But we've lost, we have these deep, intimate relationships, or we have these super superficial relationships that, are just on the internet. And we've lost that neighbor relationship. The person that you're not super intimate with, but if they need something, you bring over the pie. We have a saying, I live in Vermont, right? And we have a saying here that if your barn falls down, your neighbors will be there to help you rebuild it and take care of the cows. And it's true. It's really true, but we've lost that. And that's, I think, why. I mean, first of all, care is one of those big words. It's the big word, right? And by the time you get to care, like it's a no-brainer. It's like, of course, this is what you do. Um, but that that community, which is collaboration, that's the word about community. All the CO words, the co words, community, collaboration, communion, all of those. Um, it's why everybody's craving it,
Mhm.
because we can't do this alone. And we're learning that. We're going, you know what? We got all of this great independence and we've got all of this, freedom. And then here you are alone trying to get through something hard and it doesn't work. We have to show up for each other, and that's community.
I love that. Yes, I noticed that when there's a crisis, that's when we come together. But how come we
Mhm.
could just come together when there's no crisis and still enjoy each other and love on each other and help each other?
Right,
Yeah. I mean, if we can, I see it, like 9/11, for example,
right,
everybody came together, like
right,
crisis, and we all
right.
come together because we all won. And I think that there's so much division when it comes to politics, religion.
Mhm.
It's like we're all together. And I think that's what the world wanted, it is for us to be separate. Said,
Well, that was then, this is now, right?
yeah,
And now I think we're sick of that and we're looking
yes.
for the common ground and we want to be together. I mean, my motto these days is better together,
I love that. Better
right?
together.
We are better together. And I think that's at the root of interspirituality too, is like we can't have these divisions because that's not really what the sacred is. The sacred isn't divided. It's all one. It's whole. These divisions are artificial. So let's get down to the root of it. And the root of it is we're better together.
We are. Oh, I love that. Now, what role do mindfulness and reflection actually play in becoming better individuals and creating a better world?
Well, first word's attention,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's really interesting because in a lot of modern spirituality, we stop there,
Mm,
right? No, no, no. It's just the first word, right? It's going to carry you through everything else because you're going to have to put your attention on all these other words and all of these other things, right? So almost every spiritual tradition, well, really, truly, most of the spiritual practices in every spiritual tradition are teaching you how to pay attention, whether that's prayer, whether that's mindfulness, whether that's, Sufi whirling, whether that's going out taking a walk in nature. It's training you how to pay attention because it's so easy not to.
mhm,
So basically, we have to learn to pay attention and then we have to decide where we're putting our attention. Or I like to think of attention as a gift. Where am I giving my attention? Because I only have so much of it.
mhm,
So I want to be discerning about where I give my attention and what I give my attention to. I mean, I have friends who are, seriously depressed and despairing right now. And I'm like, how much media are you consuming? How much news are you watching? Like, 24 hours a day. Maybe we need to shift our attention, right? And then that would bring in the word balance too. So you see how these things are all related, but sometimes one is more up than the other.
mhm. Now, what feedback have you actually received from early readers?
Hmm. Always about, wow, this was almost effortless.
Hmm.
We're so used to spirituality in the West now being this like, you have to do this, you have to sit on your meditation cushion for 8 hours a day and go to yoga every day. And, you have to beat yourself up. And this doesn't require you beating yourself up. It actually requires you having curiosity, self-compassion, going at the pace that you go. There's no timeline here. This is the rest of your life, like, this is an exploration. It's a journey and it's not a hard one. I mean, you might come up against some things that you go, wow, I'm really not paying attention, or I haven't been being kind, or I really do need to bring more balance or my creativity into play, but that's not a thing you have to beat yourself up for. It's just you're becoming always. So that's usually what I've heard is, this was actually really easy. And I'm a very different person. I'm more joyful. I'm more fulfilled. I'm more connected. And the world around me, whether or not the world around me has changed, my perception of it has changed. I'm not freaking out anymore.
Yeah, people tend to freak out. You're totally right about the media. I noticed as soon as I unplugged the TV and started paying attention to other things, not the media,
Yeah,
I started really, having less fear, really.
right,
I was
right.
very fearful before, had anxiety. Like, I don't even know when the last time I had a panic attack. I used to
Yeah,
have them every day.
yeah,
Not anymore. I just feel
yeah,
so much better. So put your attention on things that are more loving and, that excite you. I always say, excite you.
yes, yes, absolutely. And you'll find, I mean, I've been telling people a lot, over the last month since the election, last 2 months, okay, stop, breathe, put your attention on this moment right here, where your hands are, right here, right? Not a future that you don't know anything about. You are, if you're that certain, give me the Powerball numbers, please. Like it's you don't really know. So you're freaking yourself out about a future that you don't really know. Be here right now. Is the sky falling on you right this moment? No, it's not. Look outside. Trees are treeing, birds are birding. It's okay. It's okay.
Be here now. I actually have that tattooed on my side here. Be here
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. But it's hard to do. We have to remind, we have to remind ourselves. Where are my hands right now? They're right here. I will be here.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Sometimes just even looking outside and noticing how the trees are swaying or,
yeah.
the insects that are out or the birds chirping, just to be still and
Yeah.
be present. Present is a present. It is a
It
gift.
is. It's
It
the
is a
gift.
gift.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Right. Remind me when my son was little and, he was going to Kumon. It was like a tutoring place.
Mhm.
And he would get nervous. He'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to go inside." I'm like, "Well, what's wrong, honey?" And he's like, "Well, I'm scared what they're going to think about me." I'm like, "Honey,
Right.
why are you worried about something that hasn't even happened yet?
Mhm.
You're building that in your head." I said,
Mhm.
"Just be here now. Take a deep breath and go in there." And I'm sure, shift your thinking, reframe your thoughts, and then things will change. And he had a great time.
Yeah.
He was just nervous. And I know we're human. We're going to get nervous here and there, and that's absolutely fine. But
Yeah.
just shift a little shifts, I think
Right.
help.
Little shifts, bring your attention back. That's why it's the first word, you know?
Yeah.
But we can go, you find when you go start going through these words that they naturally arise one to the next. They're in that order for a reason. But once you kind of go through them, if you go through them in order, sort of the first exploration, the first pass on your hike here, right? The first time you do the hike, you just go through them in order. After that, you'll find, you know what? I think I need to focus on this one today.
Yes.
You
And
know?
how do you actually see these principles evolving as people start applying them in their lives and even in their communities?
Hmm. Well, the principle, they're principles, right? So they're at the foundation. They aren't going to evolve. What is going to evolve is your understanding and your application of them, right?
Right.
So, first pass through, you might think, oh, okay, I understand what benevolence is. And then something's going to come up and it's going to take you to a deeper understanding of that, you know?
Yeah.
So the principles don't evolve. We evolve
We're
through
evolving
the
every
principles,
day. I feel.
right? If we apply the principles, we evolve and our understanding of those principles evolves.
That's beautiful. Now, where can our audience go ahead and learn more about your work, even attend your retreats or workshops and get involved in your community initiatives as well as get your book.
Well, thanks for the plug. Yeah, the book, 10 Words, An Interspiritual Guide to Becoming Better People in a Better World is available wherever books are sold. So, online at your local bookstore. Um, you can also follow me on my website. That's laurynaxelrod.com. That's LaurynAxelrod.com. Check out the Substack, Radical Spirituality, Getting to the Root of What Matters. I write there every week. There's always something new posted there. And there's Facebook and Instagram, but I'll be honest, it's not where I put my energy and my efforts. I'm interested in that face to face. I'm interested in that real connection. So, reach out to me. I'm not like a distant, you won't just get my assistant. Like I seriously want to connect with people. I want to help you become the better person and in build the better world that we all want.
It's beautiful. Any last words, Lauren, or any last thoughts?
Hmm. You know, I think it's really easy right now to look around at the world that we live in and be despairing, and to really worry that like, are we ever going to be able to build the world that we want that's peaceful, joyful, where everyone and everything thrives? And my answer is we can do it. I really, really do believe that we have the capacity, and we've been taught how to do it for thousands and thousands of years. The 10 words are the principles that come from all of those teachings. And I really honestly do believe that if we all, or at least a good number of us, were practicing these 10 words, we would become those better people and live in a better world where everything and everyone thrives.
Yes, yes, and yes. I love that. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for being on my show today. It's been an absolute honor to have you, and thank you for doing what you're doing and spreading the love to the world because we need it.
Well, thank you, Gina. You are so full of light, and it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much.